Hey guys, ScriptTuber with another video here, and this is a little bit of an older article, and I'm not going to make too big a deal of this, but this is something I actually didn't know about. And the title of it is, of course, Why Dave Filoni May Not Be the Best Choice to Lead the Franchise. Dave Filoni has effectively functioned as the de facto face of Star Wars since creator George Lucas moved on from the iconic franchise over 10 years ago. Filoni has been involved in almost every single Star Wars project since the prequels. Working alongside Lucas for years, Filoni grew up a Star Wars fan and is considered the Padawan of George Lucas, the hand-picked protege of the master himself, and he's done well by the franchise and fan base. I disagree that he was any of those things. He was certainly chosen as part of the writing team by George after he was a storyboard artist on the Clone Wars, but I don't ever remember anyone saying he was George's protege or that George wanted him running the show or anything like that. And correct me if I'm wrong, maybe he did at some point, but I have no idea about that. But either way, I mean, he hasn't really done a good job since he's been separated from George, so. Filoni's series, The Clone Wars and Rebels, are some of the most beloved Star Wars ever. I guess to some people. In many ways, Filoni has been seen as a savior of the franchise for some fans, while they make Lucasfilm President Kathleen Kennedy into a boogeyman figure. They have made up entire rumors of an entire civil war waging inside Lucasfilm between Filoni and Kennedy. Long story short, to them, everything good is Filoni, everything bad is Kennedy. Yes, there are some people that have been saying that over the last couple of years. It's kind of died down now over the last 6 months or so, but that was something that was going on for quite a while. There was this whole thing like Dave Filoni and Jon Favreau were at odds with Kennedy and blah, 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 blah. But, I mean, I remember going back, as far as I can remember, Filoni talking about the same things Kennedy was talking about. That, you know, they want to make Star Wars more female and diminish Luke to elevate Rey, you know, all this stuff. So I never really saw him that way. I don't know why anybody else did. And like, really, guys, were the Clone Wars really that good? Were they? Or was a big part of it just there was nothing else going on? There was no other Star Wars. Like, don't get me wrong. There's some stuff in there that is good, but overall, is it really that great? I don't think so, personally. And I definitely don't think Rebels is very good either. But whatever, there are people that do like those, but I do think that part of that was just the lack of anything else. And now that they're doing the live action and doing it so pitifully, and we're getting more content, now people are starting to parse it a little more and really look at it more and realizing it's not very good. Filoni's position in Star Wars has only grown in recent years. He has had a hand in guiding the franchise on Disney Plus and helped develop The Mandalorian, which has now launched its own corner of the franchise with spin-offs like Book of Boba Fett and Ahsoka. Filoni will now direct an upcoming feature film, one that will unite the three series in an epic crossover event. Yeah, and all of it's going to be to explain the First Order and the sequels, because we couldn't do that in the movies. That's just too much to ask. So now they're... You know, Mandalorian Season 3 started the ball rolling of wrecking Mandalorian. Yeah, they're all going to converge, and we're going to explain the First Order. And Palpatine coming back. That's like their whole thing. Make endless content to explain Palpatine coming back and the First Order being there out of nowhere. It's just... And then cherry pick EU stuff to try and titillate people like Thrawn and stuff. And then bring in the Mortis gods in another galaxy? Like, what? With so much knowledge and experience of the franchise from Lucas himself and his obvious love for the story, the fan base has called for Filoni to lead Lucasfilm, even as company president. While he won't be replacing Kathleen Kennedy anytime soon, he was named Chief Creative Officer of Lucasfilm 2023, giving him more control than ever. Now, I will say, going back to my earlier point about whether or not George Lucas viewed him as his protege, George Lucas did not choose him, or did not encourage Bob Iger and Disney to hire him as the president of Lucasfilm. He told them to hire Kennedy. I don't know if that means that he just thought Kennedy was more qualified in far as the business side of it is concerned, or what. However, recent developments in the galaxy far, far away have changed how we look at things. If we want the story of Star Wars to continue to thrive after nearly 50 years, we have to think carefully about who's in charge. No one can deny Filoni has done a great job for the franchise so far, but he may not be the best choice to lead Lucasfilm at this time, and here's why. Filoni has worked, 6 years, blah, blah, blah. He has been the executive producer and creative director at Lucasfilm for years now and has been involved in almost all Disney Star Wars projects, so it's not an overstatement to say that Filoni has shaped Star Wars as we know it. He is considered by many to be the future of the franchise. I don't think he is anymore. Like, that's why I think this is an interesting article to read now, because now we're 8-9 months later, and I don't think anyone believes that anymore. I mean, even some of the most, like, Filoni fan people, like Star Wars Theory and some of these guys, they're all just like, no. I think the Acolyte killed his career, because as the chief creative officer, he and being there, he would have, been a part of that show in terms of, like, green-lighting the decisions that they made, the lore-breaking decisions. And he made it pretty clear he was pretty happy with it. So I think people now are just like, no, we don't care about Filoni either. His relationship with George is something that can't be overlooked. More than just his boss, Lucas has been a mentor to Filoni, helping him become the director and producer he is, learning from his great storytelling style and helping him bring his vision to life. I see, none of this stuff, I don't believe this. Where is this coming from? George would swing by once every couple of weeks during the Clone Wars production, check out some stuff, give his 2 bits, and leave. That's essentially what would happen. And that's coming from people inside. I've done previous videos about that. I'm not getting into that. He wasn't just there every day. Like, people see one, like, documentary video of him in a room with Filoni and a bunch of other guys talking, and it means that he's his protege. It's like, is he, though? No, he wasn't there. He was doing other things. Like, you gotta remember, guys, this is around the same time he said he wasn't going to do another trilogy because he was too busy. He wanted to spend time with his family. So, I think this is way overblown. I really do. If we're going to say that what we're seeing in these Disney Plus shows is, let's call it residue. Residue from George Lucas teaching him how to produce or direct or whatever, it's pretty terrible. So, I don't know. Is his protege? Is that his protege? Is that his legacy? These awful shows? Like Ahsoka and The Acolyte and, like, I don't know. Learning from his great storytelling style and helping him bring his vision to life. No, again, I think that's completely overblown. Having his blessing is a big point in his favor. Had his blessing. We don't know where George stands on Dave now. Also, knowing how instrumental he's been to what Star Wars is today, there are some people, particularly those who are big fans of this new era of the franchise, that think guaranteeing its continuity would be a good thing. However, after many years and many successes, his time at the top might be coming to an end. The first time this became evident was the disappointment of the Book of Boba Fett. This second ever live-action Star Wars series not only has proven a massive disappointment itself for its lackluster story and poor treatment of its titular protagonist, who's been a fan favorite for decades, but also a major stumbling block for the rest of the franchise. Yeah, and this is what I'm saying. Like, all these shows are crappy. Right? Again, first 2 seasons of Mando, sure, it's fine. There's some really good stuff, some meh stuff, but it's pretty good overall. But everything else has been terrible. Everything else, except for one other show, and I'm sure we'll get into that here pretty quick. There are also issues with The Mandalorian, a series that was simultaneously Filoni's most significant achievement. Filoni's The Mandalorian became the most popular part of Star Wars. Filoni's The Mandalorian. Why are they calling it Filoni's The Mandalorian when it was created by Jon Favreau? Can somebody explain that to me? This is what I mean. The Filoni, the myth of Dave Filoni, it just keeps getting exaggerated and exaggerated and exaggerated. He had some involvement, even more so in season 3, but Jon Favreau is the majority responsible guy for the first season for sure, and even the second season. So I don't know where people are getting this. Okay, so these are the top-rated episodes. So The Rescue, Chapter 16. Who wrote it? Jon Favreau and George Lucas. Top-rated on IMDb. Or IMDb, I should say. And that's where Luke shows up, right? But, again, Jon Favreau. I don't see Dave Filoni's name there. I don't know where people are getting this. I don't understand. Here's the second highest rated, The Jedi. So Filoni was one of the writers with John and George. He did direct it, but again, you see John everywhere. Here's the next highest rated, 9.1. The Tragedy. Who wrote it? Jon Favreau and George Lucas. Where's Dave? He's not even a director or anything on this one. The next highest rated, The Believer. I don't see Dave anywhere on here, but I do see John. Just for the sake of it, we'll check a couple more out. This is Chapter 9, another highly rated one. And, oh look, Jon Favreau, George Lucas. I could be wrong. I don't want to go through every single one here. Again, Jon Favreau, George Lucas, first episode of season. Like, there's hardly any Dave. I don't know what the myth of Dave Filoni and these exaggerated perspectives that people have. Let's just check season 1 just for the sake of it. Again, it's all Jon Favreau writing, George Lucas writing. Okay, Dave did direct this one, the first episode. Okay, so he's involved, but he's not writing the stories. So this myth of the Dave Filoni is a great writer of stories. No, again, look, it's all Jon. Every single episode is Jon. And that's why, for me, if there is any kind of, like, Civil War quote going on in there, I think it's with Jon. I don't think it's with, there's Jon again. So anyways, I'm not going to keep going here, but if there's any kind of Civil War, it's Jon being angry because Dave is taking things and doing things the wrong way. Actually, there is one other thing I want to see. Okay, so I thought season 3 was really bad. Okay, so Jon's still there. So Jon was heavily involved in season 3 as well. So I don't know if he just dropped the ball or what, or they told him they wanted more, like, explain the cloning. But season 3 drops right off. And again, there's not a lot of Filoni in season 3 either. Yeah, there's almost nothing. Let's check. I want to check the Lizzo episode. It was so awful. Hold on. It sucked so bad. Yeah. Oh, Bryce, why did you direct that? It sucked so bad. This one, everyone loved this one. Filoni's involved with the writing of Chapter 20, The Foundling. Okay. He's involved. But it's all Jon. The whole thing is Jon. I don't know what happened, why he veered so far away from the first 2 seasons. I suspect, my suspicion is this, that the intention was that Grogu stays with Luke and then he goes back to doing his bounty hunting, and somebody up top said, no, we sell too many Grogu toys. That's what I think happened. And the reason I say that is because it was so inorganic the way that they ended that season. Okay, fine, he's with Luke, great. And then shoehorned in these 2 episodes, essentially, of Mando in Book of Boba Fett to deal with the Grogu issue and the fact that he didn't stay with Luke. They dealt with that, like, right away instead of waiting till Mando season 3. They shoehorned it in to, like, prepare audiences so that right away when Grogu's with Mando in season 3, episode 1, people knew, I guess, that was okay. But if you hadn't watched the Book of Boba Fett, you'd be like, what? So doesn't that seem to you like a weird transition? Like they kind of forced it on him? That's what it feels like. But, you know, if they didn't force it on him, then Jon completely dropped the ball. But the whole point of this is that Dave wasn't really involved with The Mandalorian. So why are we giving Filoni these credits that he doesn't deserve? Why are you saying Filoni's The Mandalorian? It was literally created by Jon. And he wrote almost all of it. Pretty much in on every episode. Became the most popular part of the Star Wars saga after the mixed reaction of the sequel trilogy. Both seasons 1 and 2 were highly regarded among fans. Fans were excited with the recently concluded season 3 beforehand, but didn't stay to watch. Yeah, because it got stupid. But again, Filoni had very little to do with the first 2 seasons of Mando. He directed a couple, that's it. He didn't write anything. The show failed to find its footing all the way through the season, following too many poorly developed plot threads with no apparent overreaching goal and no justification for its continued existence. This left viewers increasingly unsatisfied and led to drastically decreasing demand as the season continued, up until it suffered its lowest viewership records. I don't think the movie's going to do as well as people think it's going to do. It's the safest decision that they had to make. They didn't want to go with another decision like the Rey movie, but it's going to be problematic. I don't think it's going to make that much money. Because it's season 4. It's a continuation of the crappy story we got in season 3. Many fans were also confused the whole way through because critical little details like how Mando and Grogu got back together and why were left unanswered for those who didn't watch the Book of Boba Fett. Yeah, which, again, doesn't that seem like the studio did that after the fact? Selling too many plushies. And again, all these kids that were into Grogu are going to be older now. It's years later. I don't know if this movie's going to do very good at all. The Mandalorian, though, was very much Jon Favreau's show. Yes. So why did you even mention Filoni? He's barely involved. Robert Rodriguez was put front and center for the Book of Boba Fett, yet it was Ahsoka that was clearly Filoni's vision. The live-action series centered around a character who helped create the Star Wars The Clone Wars and in many ways acted as a live-action Season 5 for Star Wars Rebels. And it makes absolutely no sense that she's even alive, because where was she in the OT? And All of this is Dave's weird little ideas, the world between worlds, the wolf stuff, and the whales, and Thrawn that he stole, right, and put him in Rebels, stole Thrawn, doesn't want any of his characters to die. Ezra and Thrawn should be dead anyway. It makes absolutely no sense. I don't think that's very creative to just sort of shoehorn in Thrawn, and it makes no sense. It's stupid. While some audiences enjoyed Ahsoka, many were also left disappointed by it. The show was criticized for stiff performances, much of which can be attributed to Filoni's direction. Yup, as I said, it's one thing to tell an animator what to do. It's a whole other ball game trying to get a emotion or get feeling out of a live action actor. You have to know what you're doing. Which leaves some scenes to be as wooden as those in the prequel trilogy combined. I would say worse. Combined with a disappointing final episode that failed to wrap up its central storyline, Ahsoka might have been the straw that broke the camel's back in terms of goodwill Filoni had built in the franchise. Sabine gets stabbed and lives. It's the dumbest thing ever. Because he just can't let his beloved characters, the 3 people he made up himself, die. So we gotta have people getting stabbed. And by the way, what was the point of that fight anyway? Like, Shin showed up, they had this little fight for what? The fact remains that Star Wars has outgrown any single person a long time ago. The franchise has way too many storylines and a huge and diverse fan base no one person can hope to please. Putting this responsibility on Filoni alone would be unfair to everyone. This becomes evident when analyzing Star Wars' latest biggest success, which had nothing to do with Filoni. Well, again, Mando Season 1 and 2 were really good for most people. He had almost nothing to do with them. And Andor, most people really liked that watched it, and he had nothing to do with it. All the shows that everyone thinks suck, he was heavily involved, and all the shows and the 2 shows that people did like, he had no involvement. What does that tell you guys? Yes, 13-year-olds, 12-year-olds watching a cartoon might get into some of the stuff that his ideas, but no, they're not good. If you're an adult, if you watched the Clone Wars when you were like 10, and you're like, whatever, 25, 30, now go back and watch it. Let me know in the comment section what you think. Seriously. Like, I'm not saying kids are stupid or anything. I'm just saying there's different appeals. It's not very good writing. It's not. it's a lot of filler, a lot of lore stuff that comes into question and gets broken, and I've discussed this stuff a million times. Andor was the surprise masterpiece of last year because as a prequel to a prequel, many people didn't expect from what was likely to be just the next disappointment in a long line of recent live-action disappointments from Disney Star Wars. Yet, from the first moments of the first episode, Andor blew away all expectations, quickly establishing itself as the show that no one wanted, yet everyone needed for both Star Wars lovers and haters. Now, my opinion of Andor is it's okay. It didn't wreck anything. Like at this point, I'm at the point where it's like, okay, if this show doesn't wreck lore and isn't completely stupid, that's a win. Andor's pretty good. There's some really good episodes. There is some stuff in there, though, that is quite silly and kind of dumb. I'm not going to get into it. I've reviewed it. You can check those reviews out. There are some things that people, I think, just sort of, for some reason, didn't notice or whatever. I did notice. But overall, it's a pretty good show. Andor told an incredible story without any Jedi or Sith, introducing many new, deeply developed characters that are more average and more human. It's a slow burn action. Blah, blah. We already know that. And the acting's good. And it's not wooden, and the story is cool. Dave Filoni had absolutely nothing to do with Andor. Nothing to do with Andor. And nothing to do, really, with The Mandalorian Season 1 and 2 either. Tony Gilroy was the showrunner and was responsible for its huge success. This might be because when approaching Star Wars-related projects, Gilroy's method is completely different than Filoni's. Gilroy is more committed to crafting a good story than he is to honoring the Star Wars legacy. He is not precious with the property and is willing to experiment with it, something Filoni... What? That's all Filoni does is just shoehorn in garbage and member berries and stupid crap. I will admit, though, to a degree, Gilroy, like, what he does with Mon Mothma is totally insane in Andor, as far as I'm concerned. Like, basically pimping your daughter out. Really, Mon? You need money that bad, do you? Like, to me, that's weird. Like, I understand the rebellion, it's a war, there's some gray areas, but I'd still like some of these characters to be moral people. And it turns out Mon Mothma's kind of not really moral at all. She's willing to pimp her daughter out. Like, guys, that's weird. So in that sense, he is kind of not totally honoring the Star Wars legacy as far as I'm concerned. because I don't want my leader of my rebellion to be that type of a person. But anyway, I think Filoni does way more experimenting and doing stupid crap, way worse than Gilroy. Gilroy stuck to the Star Wars universe pretty solidly, I thought. I don't know. The way he depicted the Empire, all that stuff was fine. So, I don't know. One of the most exciting Star Wars projects in recent years was Star Wars Visions. I don't care about that. Audiences are eagerly awaiting the release of The Acolyte, a Star Wars series from Leslie Headland. Looking over Filoni's work for the Star Wars franchise, he has some major strengths and weaknesses. He knows how to take elements that fans hated and rework them to be part of a larger mythology to contextualize them in richer ways. But most of the stuff that fans hated, he's involved with. Whether it's in the sequels or otherwise. So, he's just fixing his own stupid mistakes. Star Wars The Clone Wars has gone a long way in shaping the image of the prequels. I don't even get that either. Like, it made the prequels so much better. Did it? I'll never understand that. Which were even more hated than the sequel trilogy ever was. I disagree with that heavily. Let me know in the comment section. Are the prequels more hated than the sequel trilogy? They're not good, but they're not that bad, are they? Not as bad as the sequels. Filoni has also introduced many new beloved characters into the franchise that fans love just as much as the original trilogy, from Ahsoka to no. I think people do love Ahsoka, but not even close to the OT characters. Captain Rex and the Clone Wars, again, this is exaggeration. Yeah, some people like Captain Rex, but like everything Filoni does has to get exaggerated like it's something bigger than what it is. To the Ghost Crew and Rebels, to even recently the Bad Batch, Filoni knows character work. I don't think that many people care about the Bad Batch. It's just there to explain stupid Palpatine. Yet sometimes he sacrifices the characters in the story to focus on other unrelated parts of the franchise, oftentimes in favor of reminding audiences of other Star Wars projects. The Book of Boba Fett spent 2 of its 7 episodes focusing on The Mandalorian. Bo-Katan has a larger role in Season 3 of The Mandalorian than The Mandalorian himself. Ahsoka is weirdly more about Sabine Wren than the title character. Yeah, but that's not all Dave's fault. John was involved with that, so I don't... Again, we're putting this guy on a pedestal as if he's like everything. No, John wrote a lot of those episodes. I personally think, like I said earlier, the orders came from above because they wanted to keep Grogu in there and they wanted to try and start explaining Palpatine coming back. But Filoni didn't have a ton to do with that. This also speaks to an issue with Filoni, which is that he is shrinking the Star Wars galaxy. For a franchise that is so vast and so many characters, Filoni's emphasis on interconnectivity and multiple crossovers with characters constantly appearing makes the galaxy feel small. I've been saying this for years. It's not just him, though. There's other writers involved with that, too. While audiences love the original characters, bringing in Luke Skywalker and C-3PO feels like it is taking away from the characters Filoni's stories should be focused on. Soon, Star Wars will only reference itself and alienate audiences who are not familiar with every part of the franchise. That's right, exactly. You have to go watch the Book of Boba Fett to understand if Grogu's... Like, they don't allow... We have to use these shows to explain the sequels. They don't allow anything to just be its own story. They're trying to, go buy the comic book to find out the answer to the massive plot hole. It's stupid. Filoni is now set to direct one of 3 future Star Wars films. Filoni will be an Avengers-style crossover event bringing in various characters. Grand Admiral Thrawn. Acting as both Chief Creative Officer and Director of the feature film is similar to James Gunn, running DC Studios while also directing Superman Legacy. While he likely won't touch Andor Season 2, he might have more hands-on control over the development of both Mangold's Jedi prequel film. I don't think the Rey movie is even happening. I don't think either of those are even happening. Making sure movies, television, and video games have more callbacks and references. This certainly is fun for longtime fans and gives the impression of an overall plan that fans have said they want, yet it also could result in even more behind-the-scenes issues with Star Wars, something the brand that has had a hard time with. Should one person have the sole creative vision behind Star Wars, does the brand benefit from having a variety of creative voices, giving something unique to Star Wars? Okay, he's not taking it over, though. Again, I mean, it's not as if Leslie Headland wasn't allowed to do what she wanted to do. She was encouraged to do, right? I think one of the problems with Dave is that Dave thinks that he can, he's going to be able to spin whatever stupid crap he does or other people do into something good. I think that's one of his flaws. I think there's maybe some ego there. I don't know, but yeah, no. Anyways, guys, so I just find that really funny that the best Star Wars live action they've done, he has basically nothing to do with it. And all the worst stuff, he has something to do with it. and yet he's the savior. I don't think anyone believes that anymore. It's a disaster. Anyways, let me know in the comment section what you think. If you like this content, please like and subscribe. Always helps the channel. Feel free to check out anything else on my channel. Have yourselves a really good day.